Hey there guys, I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome back to another video, and today I'm going to be talking about Death Stranding 2 on the beach. So this is the sequel to the first Death Stranding game that came out in 2019. Now, I do remember playing the first Death Stranding game, and in my opinion, I really feel like it's a very, I have very mixed thoughts about it. Like, I really do love Kojima's direction, the art style, the story, the whole design of the game. I think it's all perfect, but I'm a little bit debated about how the gameplay is. It's a very tedious style of gameplay that you're literally just delivering packages from one point to another, just trying to build up the chiral network. I mean, it's very, very tedious, okay? And I do feel like that game has drawn a lot of debate from people about whether how good the game was, essentially. Personally, I think the game is a very good game. However, I do think the gameplay was like the only real thing that I really had to critique on when it comes to the first Death Stranding game. Now, obviously, this is the sequel. I knew going into this game and playing it, I knew that the same gameplay concept was going to be carried over from the first one. So I was pretty much prepared to buckle my seatbelt, get my PS5 controller out, and just go along the whole journey that Kojima has put together for me. And I have to say, this game is very, very good. Now, like I said with the first Death Stranding game, I only really have one criticism when it comes to Death Stranding 2. And obviously, it's the gameplay. Now, I could see like the gameplay will draw a lot of debate, I guess, because obviously it's part of the core concept of Death Stranding that you play as Sam Porter Bridges, who is a porter that delivers packages from one point to another point or different ports, and tries to build up the chiral network and meets with different people along the way. I understand that is the core gameplay of what Death Stranding was noticeable for, and obviously the sequel, I was expecting that. Now, I will say I think the gameplay, they did make more attempts to try and not make it as tedious as the first game. Like, you go on these sort of long, prolonged journeys from one point to another. You are given more options, such as using vehicles early in the game. And also you can use like a fast travel system more effectively. So you can effectively try and I wouldn't say speed run, but at least try and make the gameplay not as tedious and long-winded as what you had previously with the first game. Also, another thing I would like to add is I do think the gameplay of Death Stranding 2, they did focus more on trying to focus on some more objectives that you could do in this game that does require more combat or stealth approached objectives. I know the first game did use that as well, but I think in the second game they made more attempts to actually make more of those objectives more usable throughout the game and the main story. So I will say, like, the gameplay, whilst similar to the first game, they have made some improvements. Now, I think the rest of Death Stranding 2 is brilliant, like absolutely amazing. I really feel like Kojima's done such a great job in terms of like building a story, like a really in-depth story with lots of twists and turns, and really build up some really good characters along the way. Now, there are some new characters in Death Stranding 2, such as Tarman and Tomorrow, and they really do like add to the whole the story and progression of Death Stranding 2. And I would say all the voice actors throughout the whole game, for all the characters that they try to voice over, are brilliant. Like, I really feel like the whole direction, the acting is perfect in this game. Also, another thing I will also say is I do also think this is a very good sequel. Like, typically some sequels, I haven't really seen them try and see the progression of how they would make a sequel from the first game. But I think with Death Stranding 2, they do carry on that sequel well from the first game. So obviously the sequel starts 11 months after the events of the first Death Stranding game. And essentially, Sam Porter Bridges starts out in Mexico. So after he's rebuilt the chiral network in in the UCA, the United States of America. He now does the same thing in Mexico. And then he also comes along with the other characters as well that he also has to try and build up the chiral network in Australia. So it does set up some new landscapes and different areas of the game, and some of the landscapes and locations that you get drawn into throughout the whole game, especially going from point A to point B. Like some of the visual fidelity and the locations are amazing. I really do think this is probably one of the best visual games I've played in recent years. I know like gaming graphics and visual fidelity has kind of pushed itself too far beyond its limits nowadays, and you get like some amazing experiences. Like very recently, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was an amazing visual experience. But I also think like Death Stranding 2 is another jaw-dropping experience, like visually. Now, the game itself is a very long game. Now, I tried to mostly go about doing the main story sort of objectives throughout the game. There were like some few side objectives as well that I did try along the way, just by carrying out some packages and just delivering it to the next fort. But essentially, I did mostly the main objectives. And usually, give or take, the game itself is around between 30 to 40 hours. So that's how long it took me to beat Death Stranding 2 whilst trying to focus on its main missions. And I will say the story itself is a compelling journey. There's clearly a lot of ambition done that Hideo Kojima has put into. The whole story and direction works really well. And there's so many unexpected twists and turns. And some characters that you actually look at and you can actually relate with. And I think he's done such a great job building that up. You know, there are like characters. I think one of the most notable characters or villains throughout the game that you will come across is Higgs. I think he's a really well put together character. And you see him and his ghost mechs that you are going to encounter throughout the game. And it really just builds up such a really good narrative. And also, I will say, like, gameplay-wise, I know I've been very critical about the first Death Stranding's gameplay, and parts of that element in the second game is obviously the same sort of feel. But you do get more sense that you do get more combat-based objectives, like I mentioned earlier, and you come across different sort of enemies that you'll come through the game, like BTs. You'll come up against mules as well. That's similar to the first Death Stranding game, but also you will come up against ghost mechs as well. So there's a lot of challenges that will come up when playing the game. It's not just mostly, like, most of the game is point A to point B delivering packages, but I do think some of the combat or stealth focus or objectives throughout Death Stranding 2 does not make it as much as a tedious chore or objective that you've had compared to the first one. But overall, for me, Death Stranding 2 is just a brilliant game. I absolutely had a great time playing this game. I really love its story, its game direction, its visuals, its soundtrack as well. I forgot to mention the soundtrack. Like, a lot of the soundtrack throughout the game that you do most of the main story, really, really good. But I will say the gameplay, whilst improvements from the first game, I would say some of that core gameplay that's still from the first game to the second game, I do feel a bit mixed about it, I have to be honest. But overall, I would say this game does get my approval for sure. And I think if you're a fan of games that you just want to sit back and relax and just go on a massive journey that always has a lot of unpredictable events, this is a game I would definitely recommend for sure. And then certainly if you're a fan of Hideo Kojima and a lot of his work, this has definitely got my approval for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Let me know if you have played this game or not. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, dislike if you want to dislike. Thank you for watching. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.